Connect.
Hey everyone, it is Eric with Rockin HTV session 92. Tonight I am with my good friend Paul Hoare of HarvestSupportUSA.UK, and we're going to talk about what you need to know if you want to go on harvest in the USA using either a J1 or an H2A Visa. So while we're waiting here for Facebook to do its thing, we'll let everyone gather in the room and wish everyone well as we wait for 8:30 to come around. So consider this the pre-show. And we have Steve watching. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you. A couple others have joined in right away. And Clayton, nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. This is kind of unique because Paul has specialty in this area, what we're talking about tonight, and has been doing it for a number of years and has become a friend to Rockin H. And we're excited to have you here, Paul. So we have Clayton. Good evening. Good to see you. Kent from Canada. Good to see you as always. Chris from New Zealand.
Hi, Chris.
Paul knows. We actually took a field trip and went out to go see Chris when he was chopping out west of here an hour and a half. We were out in the middle of nowhere, and Chris was out busy making money and bringing in silage. So that was pretty cool. And we have another Canadian joining us. Welcome, Jacob. Good to see you. And everyone else. So we got a couple more minutes here before we get going. So we learned something valuable today. We took another field trip among several while he's been here. Garrett from Colorado, good to see you.
Hi, Garrett.
So we had went up to go get some bling for my shop, and this was kind of dumb. Anyone, you're welcome to make fun of me after this. Let me see. Kent's out spraying. Oh, he went on Harvest 94. Well done. All right. Who'd you go with, Kent, now that you're saying so? But we found out that you cannot run power tools out of a 110-volt outlet in a GMC Acadia. Doesn't work. Just saying.
Read the manual first.
Yeah, read the manual, and then don't assume it's to do anything more than charge a phone. But we did get something cool. Anyway, come hell or high water, we beat it, and we got what we wanted. We got what I wanted.
Yeah. You did.
We have David Garnis in the house. Good to see you. Hi. Welcome, David. Kent, don't forget to tell us who you went. We're kind of curious here now that you've mentioned it. We'd love to know who you went on Harvest with. We have Sam here from Texas, and Sean. I forget where you're from, Sean, but welcome to you. And Sam, he's got a really cool page, Wheat Country, that he's keeping up. If you love Harvest, make sure you go watch. Go check out his page. It's pretty cool. So, how many miles do you reckon you've driven since you've been in the States this trip, Paul?
Oh, I think by the end of it, it'll be about 2,000 miles in 2 weeks.
So about 2,000 miles in 2 weeks. Hey, if you would do me a favor, for those of you guys watching, tell us if you can hear all right, because we may need to scoot up or whatever.
Pull the table closer to us.
Yeah, pull the table closer. Sean's from Virginia. Wow, welcome. All right, I guess I didn't know that. Barry Reimer harvesting from Killarney, Manitoba. All right. I wonder, is he still going then, you reckon? That'd be an interesting thing. Let me see. And what I'm doing here is I'm refreshing my computer screen so I can post a link when it becomes important. But I don't want to get it out there too quick. So, okay. Just waiting on my computer to do its thing here.
This is all intriguing to me, what Eric does. When he does his Rockin HTV things. It's all very high tech.
All right. Robert, hey from Minnesota. Welcome. Good to see you. And David, yeah, okay. Yep, loud and clear. Perfect. Well done. All right, thank you. Okay, well, we are at 8:30. Can't stay long. 10-minute break. Well, you got to do your work. Catch your replay. We'd appreciate that. So it's 8:30, so I'm going to get this thing formally started, and we'll get on with it, okay? So make sure you bring your questions. Also, if you want, share this thing on your page or wherever you think people that could get some value out of this would be watching, and that way we just help more people. So I appreciate if you do that. Okay. Hey everyone, it is Eric with Rockin HTV, session number 92. Tonight we are going to learn all about how to harvest in the United States on an H2A or J1 visa, we have our great friend of Rockin H, a great friend of mine personally, Paul Hoare with harvestsupportusa.uk here, and he is going to answer all our questions and then kind of give us a few guidelines on how to take an adventure of a lifetime called the custom wheat harvest. So, Paul, thanks for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, and let's get right out of the gate. Can you tell people who you are, where you're from, and we'll get going with that.
Yeah, my name's, obviously, as Eric says, Paul Hoare. I'm from England. I've been involved with the American custom harvest since, 1984 I did my first harvest, but it started way before then. In 1976 in England, there was a program shown on TV by World About Us called Yellow Trail from Texas. It was a film based on Dale Stark's crew, which I've met several people now who work for Dale Stark's. And I was just a little 10-year-old back then, and I said to my parents that's what I want to do when I finish school and agricultural college. And that's what I did. In 1983, I first came out to the US, worked on a corn and soybean farm in Minnesota, and did the land work there for the summer and worked with the pigs in the winter. And then in 1984, I took a Greyhound bus trip down to Vernon, Texas, and I started working for Gordon Haynes Harvesting, and that's where my harvesting career kind of started. I did 1984, 98 and 2001. And then after the 2001 harvest, I came back pretty much every year to teach guys to drive combines with Haynes. And then 10 years ago, David Haynes, who became a really good friend of mine, asked me if I'd recruit for him, for his crew. And I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. And it's a fairly steep, or a very steep learning curve, working on that. And the first year I had 3 guys with Haynes, the following year 6, and then the year after that 13 guys, which was the whole crew. And off the back of that, it's gone from doing the Haynes crew to 7, 8 other crews now, and a farm in Mississippi, which I have a guy on at the moment, and another guy will be going out in about a month, 6 weeks' time. And I also have one guy in the US who's doing a little bit of work with one of the header manufacturers as well.
And that would be Shelbourne headers, for those of you that are familiar with the stripper heads that you'll see. They're really popular in this area, eastern Colorado, I don't know where else, but I know basically from Oklahoma to eastern Colorado up to Nebraska, you'll see a lot of Shelbourne stripper headers around. So let's just recap for those guys just joining in. We have Dwayne and Ken here on now. So you came to the States. Well, you got turned on to custom wheat harvest at age 10 by video. Came over here at age 18, was it?
Yeah, I was 19, 19 when I came out here. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then got home just for my 21st birthday.
Okay. So
I had 2 years out here straight off.
Oh, right on. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So 2 years, one farming, one on custom harvest, and then came back. And then David is the one got you started with what we know is Harvest Support USA UK.
Yeah.
And now and just so you know, he used to base out of Vernon and then go out and visit these fellows, and now he comes to my house and stays here for a while, and then goes out to meet these guys, which he has been doing since you arrived last week.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say one of these guys watching this from Ireland, they say, I'm really turned on about going on wheat harvest. What would be a next logical step?
Okay, well, we have a website which is www.harvestsupport.co or USA-UK.com. There's an application form on there which you're welcome to fill in at any time of the year. I take applications all year round for people, and we want the application form filled in along with a reference, for potentially 2 references and a passport size photo, and that can be either emailed to myself or sent by post. And then in last weekend of November and the first weekend of December, we do interviews end of November in Ireland, and then the first weekend of December in England. And what we do now, we don't do one-on-one interviews anymore. We used to do one-on-one interviews, but we kind of felt, this is my wife and I felt, it was better to do a recruitment day where we had a lot of guys coming from, say, Scotland or Wales, which for England is a long way to travel. And just to come down there for a 20-minute, half an hour interview, we felt was a little bit too much. So what we do now, we have a whole day, and we do a presentation of what harvest is like over here and what's expected of you, and the different crews we work with. We do a little Q&A session. We usually, where we do our interviews, we're at a hotel or a golf club is what we do, the one in Thetford. And so lunch can be provided if you need it. Makes a day of it, and the reason we've done it like that as well now is because all the guys get together in a room, and we found it works better because we watch all these guys all day long and we see how they interact with each other. And the biggest challenge with getting guys on crews here is having a group of guys who are going to be able to live together for 7 or 8 months, 24/7, and that is the biggest challenge. I don't generally take guys on who have had years of experience on combines. To be honest, that's not necessary because a lot of the crews want guys who what they call out here a greenhorn. As long as you've got farm experience and time on tractors and know what it's about, when you go to a crew, they'll want to teach you how they want combines to run, and it's no point. It's very hard work having someone who's sat on a combine for years doing it particularly the way they want to do it. So if you get someone out here who's going to be taught how the crews want it done, and it's done completely different here to it is in the UK or Ireland, that's a better option. Not saying I wouldn't take guys who've got combine experience, but it's often, this is why I want to do it, because I had no combine experience and I wanted to get the experience, and I got it when I was here, and that was a big thing that I wanted to learn. Okay. So get the forms in, and then we usually try and get those off to the crews before Christmas, and we can then start trying to get the visa side of things sorted out, and we work 2 different visas.
Okay, so when I kind of first got associated with you, Paul, your specialty seemed to be the H2A. Can you dive into that a little bit and unpack what that means?
So there's 2 types of visas that guys can go on. There's a J1 visa, which is an education visa, which you come out here. You can only do a J1 once off. You can't do that 2 years or 3 years on the trot because it's education. So it's deemed that you're coming out here for education in a particular field that you're studying in, and you have to show that you're actually studying in that field of agriculture.
So let me back up real quick. So you're saying that, so you arranged to have a guy come here and they go on a J1. So when they're in the harvest crew, they actually have to prove they're learning some sort of skills and academics along the way then?
Yes, they come out here and they'll go through, say, University of Minnesota or a company that works with the J1. And they could potentially have to do some schoolwork while they're here.
Right. Okay.
Just to keep the thing going along. Whereas the H2A is a work visa.
Right.
So they'll come out here as to work, and that can be, they can do an H2A 1, 2, or 3 years. They can do several years on the trot with an H2A, which is what I tend to deal with more is the H2A. I have a few companies deal with the J1, but my primary side is with the H2A side.
Okay. So after you kind of get, guys will say they fill out the application, you get them plugged in. Mm-hmm. The harvesters now have their applications and they're evaluating who they want to fill, and then the paperwork for either the J1, and primarily your space, the H2A, that process starts after they're pretty well hired, correct?
That's correct, yeah. So the harvester will say, yes, we'll take this guy on. And then the next step for me is, with a J1, pretty much a lot of the paperwork for that gets taken out of my hands. I'll let the guys know they've got the job, and I'll let them know what the next process will be on a J1. With an H2A, I then deal with I get the paperwork, what we call I-797 from the US. Once I have that, then we can start processing their paperwork through the embassy in the UK, either Ireland or London.
Right.
And I'll furnish them what is called letters of intent, which is offering them a job, and all the paperwork and what they'll need to fill out the application for the embassy. They have to pay for their visa application to the embassy, $180, and then they go to an interview in London or Ireland, in Belfast or Dublin, and then they get their fingers crossed they get their visa granted.
Now that interview piece, that is with the consulate, right?
That's right. That's with the consulate, yeah.
Okay.
And then the consulate will grant them their visa, and they'll have their passport stamped with their visa, which will be returned to them within the week of that interview.
Okay. So they're just trying to fetter out whether or not they're probably going to return home, I suppose.
Yes, they have to know that they have to prove that they're going to come home. Yes,
Okay.
So when they go to interview, they have to prove that they're going to have to want to come home.
Okay.
They can't sort of make them believe that they're going to stay here.
Okay. All right. Now let's take a. Oh darn it! I just had that as. Okay. So, a point of clarity though. To come over on an H2A, there has to be a need for you to be here, right?
Yes, the harvesters have to actually they have to offer that job out to someone in the US initially.
Right.
Okay, so, but if they can't fill that position, then they are allowed to use the H2A program to fill those positions. But they have to potentially try and fill them with home staff initially.
Right.
Okay.
So, just so you understand, guys, if you and this would be more for the American audience, I think, because there's sometimes some vagueness. Because I've heard before they say, well, why don't you just hire American help? Well, in the event that a qualified American cannot, or U.S. citizen cannot be found, then the alternative is now we can reach out to other people, to foreign nations, to recruit help here. Yeah. And that is what the custom harvesters are finding specifically, because you're talking about 8 months of work, incredibly long hours. In the downtime, when you're down, you're just down. Perhaps you're out in the middle of nowhere with nothing to do. And sometimes not everyone finds that appealing, and therefore the guys are struggling to find help. And then now they have to apply for so many visas. For example, let's say by December they have 10 spots they need filled. They have 6, but they need 4 more guys. At that point, do they have to apply for visas themselves? Do they say we need 4 people? What do they do?
They could, if they on their I-797, they've actually got there. They can take, say, 10 people.
Yes.
And they've only got 6. They still have 4 spots open, so they could take those 4 others on any time during that period.
Okay.
So they've got open spots. I mean, I get some guys, or take guys on at the start of the season for the wheat harvest,
right,
and then they'll need more guys for full harvest. Okay. So they'll save some of those H2A spots for full harvest, so they can bring guys out in September time.
Okay.
And fill those spots.
Now, and then the H2A is only for 8 months, right?
No, it can be up to 9 months.
Up to 9 months, and then those guys have to return home for a period of time, and then they can come back?
Yes, they are supposed to go home after their H2A expires, but there are exceptions that will let them stay here. But you have to apply through your employer to make that extension.
But the routine is, traditionally, you just need to go home for a bit.
Yes, you need
and
to
then reapply, I guess?
Yes, you have to go through the same process again the following year to get a visa again to come out.
Okay.
You go through
the
process again.
Hey, we got Conrad, a friend of Rockin H, and also, have you met Conrad, I believe? The Wheat Harvest movie.
Yeah, the Wheat Harvest guy.
Yeah. And many other films, so if you don't know Conrad, make sure you look up his documentaries. He does a phenomenal job. Lots of good work there at Conjo Studios. Okay, guys, we've pretty well had the floor. If you have questions, now would be a good time to start typing those in. If you have something specific you want to ask Paul. I think we had a question regarding salary or whatever. Doesn't that vary from crew to crew?
It does vary from crew to crew, but to be honest, one of the first biggest turn-offs for any cruise is when the first question people ask is how much am I going to be paid? Because a lot of going on a harvest cruise is about the experience of doing that job and learning how to run machines and travelling from one end of the country to the other. So when people ask, the first question they tend to ask is how much am I going to earn. That's one of the biggest turn-offs for a lot of crews.
Okay.
They're more interested in someone who wants to do the job for what the job is and what they're going to get out of it as far as experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really a reason many of the guys come to you and do this, right? Is they just want to see the States, run a big machine.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the guys, potentially the ideal age for guys on harvest cruises between the age of 18 and 30.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, we found that 10-year gap or so is a good age group for guys to be on a crew, and pretty much all the guys that I send out here from the UK, they come because they want to. It's something they want to do, something they want to experience and learn from. It's something we never get to do back in the UK because we don't run big crews like this and go from one end of the country to the other cutting wheat. Our block in the UK is top end of 4 weeks. So to come here and do it over a 7-8 month period is a big experience. And just the fact that you're running big kit, big machinery, and seeing a lot of country, Midwest, that you never ever see, what I call proper America, in the centre here, is why the guys want to do it.
Yeah, cool. All right, Conrad's asking, have the new immigration laws, have they changed anything?
Not at the moment. We'll probably see what happens next year, Conrad, with that side of things. But at the moment, it hasn't made any effect this year. The last 2 years, visa applications have been very quick through the embassy compared to 3 years ago when we had an absolute nightmare getting guys through the embassy. Where a lot of things were so delayed, we weren't getting visas done till late June, and it was a nightmare for harvesters because they needed their crews here.
Right.
But as at the moment, no, we haven't seen any major changes yet. But
okay.
We'll see what happens next year.
And I did hear on the news that the H2A visa system will be looked at. What does that mean? It's way too early to tell. But I know Congress is wanting to do something with it, but probably just make it more complicated, would be my guess.
Though we're hoping it's going to make it a little bit easier because as far as what I'm aware of, it's not going to be done by the Department of Labour for agriculture. It's going to be done by the Department of Agriculture, not by the Department of Labour for the agricultural visas. So fingers crossed that'll make life easier.
Right. Because
they understand what the harvesters are up against and the time scale to get guys here.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. So what would be a typical scenario so you have a guy you've hired, he gets here, all of his paperwork's done, he flies through the system, now he's on a plane coming to the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
What happens from the time he lands until, say, they head to Texas or Oklahoma or wherever they start?
Okay, well, the process once they get here is we've actually found over the years now we need to try and get guys here earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We could, say 5 or 6 years ago, we could send guys out and they could come out here late April time and get through the CDL and that side of things. But now, because the CDL is a little bit more difficult to do, we find we have to get guys out sometimes in March, early April. Mid-April is becoming a sort of popular time to get guys here now. When they first get here, they have to be in the country for so long before they can apply for their social security number.
Right.
Until they've got a social security number, they can't apply to do their CDL.
Right.
So it's a step-by-step thing, and the earlier you can get guys here, they can get that process done.
Right.
And depending on the state as well, depends how fast they can get their CDL done. And also, guys get set up a bank account so their money can be paid in. They've got a debit card so they can draw money out, and they're not carrying loads of cash around with them. Do drug tests and stuff like that need to be done relevant to the CDL. And just to get acclimatised to being out here where it can get very hot, compared to home, and just get into the way of life here really, and get acclimatised. A lot of the guys who come out earlier, I've got some guys who work for some crews who've been doing seeding wheat and stuff like that, or working with cattle. on the home farm, so they're getting to know things around here, or just working on machines and getting them prepped ready to go as well.
Right. Okay. Conrad says some farmers in California or Canada and some of the ranchers have had issues, must be with the visa issues. Sam Besner asks, what if it doesn't work? Can they quit and just go home? That's a good question.
Yeah, well, they can. Yeah, I've had guys do that, just quit and go home. It's disappointing if they do that, but yes, guys do that. They're not shackled to stay here. They're their own free will to go home. So yes, they can go home if they're not happy. Or the other thing, the best thing they can do is talk to their boss where they're working. Talk to me, and we have moved guys before now to different crews where they'd be happier as well.
Okay.
So if you get a clash of personalities, it can be possible to move guys to different crews if there's spots to move them to.
Okay. One thing we haven't covered is who are you hiring for? Can you tell us?
Yeah, I'm hiring for High Plains and Paplo, Stevens. I've got a little list here because I can never remember all. Hoffman Harvesting, Triple B, Johnson Harvesting, and my old crew Haynes, although we have none with them this year. And then we've got Aber Farms in Mississippi, which is a rice farm, which we're hiring for.
And then also Shelbourne.
Who's on here on advisory, advising with Shelbourne.
Advising, okay, right.
Advising.
So a little different there,
yeah.
Okay. Austin says, what if you get in trouble with the law? Good question. What if you get a speeding ticket or some sort of citation?
You're liable for that. It's your. You've got an American driving license. You're at the same mercy as anyone who's over here. If you've committed a violation, it's down to you to pay the fine and take the jail if you get it. It's not, it's nothing to do with your employer. If you committed a crime like that, you have to pay the consequences.
Okay.
The only difference there is if your boss tells you to take a load of wheat to the elevator in a truck that's overloaded and he's told you to do that, then that is not your responsibility. You shouldn't carry the can for that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's a good question, actually. That's a pretty good one. Along that line, let's talk about health insurance. That could be a big deal because I'm sure your health insurance providers, wherever country you come from, don't apply here. Mm-hmm. So what do you do?
Okay, so all the time you're at work with your employer covers anything that would happen to you during the day. So he's covered by work. You'll be covered by workman's comp.
Right.
But if you're not at work, you're out. Say go down. What I call this playtime insurance. If you go out with the guys to the swimming pool, you jump in that swimming pool and you crack your head open on the bottom of the pool, and you'll need medical attention, then you need playtime insurance, which most of the guys take out when they're at home in England, so they're covered for anything like that. The biggest thing we say to them about that is if they need to make sure they take out insurance if they'll cover them for repatriation back to the UK, because that can be the expensive part of it as well, and you need to make sure you can get home. But it's down to the guys how much they want to spend on insurance. To say the average probably cost for insurance for the period of time you're going to be out here with a good insurance company is £300 or £400 for the period of time.
So maybe about $450 American. There you go.
$450, $500 American. Yeah.
Okay, good. Sam says we don't overload trucks during harvest. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Good for you.
I know you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's good. Are guys salaried or are they hourly? How does that work?
That depends on the crew. And way they work. Yeah.
Okay, so it just varies depending on.
Can vary,
Now, in our previous conversations, and this is, I think, a talent that you and Mary have. Mary's his wife, by the way. It seems like a talent that you have is not only do you try and get guys that will work well together for the period of time they're here, working for Paplau or Stevens or someone, but you also try and match their personality to the personality of the crew. Can you unpack that?
I guess it comes with years of watching people.
Okay.
I mean, you've kind of noticed that this week when you said to me,
right,
you can notice the difference between the crews, between the bosses and the employers, and how they seem to match. I just put that down to probably years of watching guys, and trying to put them together, and it seems to work.
Right.
I've had a few, obviously, that it doesn't work, but the bulk of them, and it's always good when you get to the end of the season and everybody's stayed here. It's disappointing if we have guys leave and come home. And what is always nice is when you get guys who come back to this crew again the following year. Right. That's always pleasing because you know that they were happy there and got on really well.
Okay. Yeah. And so what Paul's doing now, well, why are you in the States? Let's just ask that question.
So what I'm doing now, I come out pretty much the first 2 weeks of June, and I've always felt it a good thing to come out and make sure all the guys that I've sent out here are happy and settled, and if there's got any questions or want any help with stuff, I'm here for 2 weeks, go around all the guys I've sent out here and catch up with them and make sure, if there's anything I can sort out or they need sorting out, we'll do that. I think it's good for them morale-wise to see someone from home and just make sure they're okay. Come out here, take lots of pictures and stuff and get stuff for the website, and also to catch up with the employers and find out if there's anything we can do different for the following year and implement that. And just to build up a good relationship with guys. And also, when I'm here as well, I talk to other harvesters, sort of word of mouth goes out, and I go and talk to them with potentials for following years that we may get more crews.
Yeah. So, and then he's here for 2 weeks. So, Austin says, can your family come?
It's kind of difficult, to be honest. What a lot of harvesters want is single guys, because it's a very tight-knit community. There possibly are crews that families will come out, but it's a very because they all live in a bunkhouse together, and this is why we have to make sure guys can live together for that period of time. There are some crews, but none of the crews that I deal with work that way, and it's purely because if the family wasn't well or whatever and you had to leave, it's quite difficult. So no, to be honest, it's quite a difficult one. But so there's no crews I deal with would take. And the other one that is also another one that a lot of crews won't like is guys who are all friends. That's a very difficult one as well, because we've had the situation where if one friend decides I'm leaving, all the other ones will go as well. So, and the guy can lose a third of his crew in one hit. It's not a good thing.
And actually, I have a short story. I won't name the crew, but the harvester hired a husband and wife team, and they had some trouble getting their visas, because during their interviews they were interviewed pretty hard about, are you coming home? Because a husband and wife team who didn't have any kids, husband and wife team coming over here, they had a very hard time proving that they were coming back home.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so in their case, they could prove that they had a small business that they had shut down while they were here in the United States, and then they were going to open that back up. So they had something to come home to, which is why they were allowed to come to the United States, because it was fairly certain they were going to go back home to their home country. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Good questions, guys. That's really, really great stuff. If you could, Paul, let's say one of these guys right here in the States is watching. If you had like 2 or 3 good suggestions for them wanting to go on harvest, what would they be?
The first thing is, the first question you want to ask your employers how much you're going to be paid, because that is an instant turn off for a lot of them. Because most of these guys on the crew or who run a crew want people who want to do it for the experience, and because they want to do it, not because they're doing it for the money. You'll be looked after well on all these crews. There's no doubt about that. But and the other thing is to put a good CV in of what you've done in the past, and that is the main thing. Not just do you need a truck driver or do you need a grain cart driver? Is to put a proper CV in and make a proper approach to the employer to why you want to work for them.
Okay. Yeah. Anything they should be aware of? Anything they should be, I don't know what I'm trying to ask. Any red flags they should look for when they're applying for a specific crew? Is there anything they should?
Not that I really know. No.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
I mean, all the crews, most of the crews, well, all the crews I deal with are good crews. I can't vouch for everybody over here. I mean, there's good and bad in everybody.
Sure.
But
sure.
you know, but I mean, you could look out at the turnover of staff of crews. That would
Right.
probably be a hint. You know.
Yeah.
But if you've got guys who go back to a crew year in year out, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
You know, it's another good one to watch out for.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Any other parting questions here? We're going to wrap up here pretty quick, I think. So if you have another question here, why don't you go ahead and get that in the comments here. And while we're waiting, I did go ahead and post the harvestsupportusa.usa website in the comments, so you can go right to Paul's website if you want to contact him privately. He's also on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Harvest Support USA-UK is on Facebook.
Right.
And there's lots of turnover on there as far as people, or the crews I work with. I keep posting what they're doing, so it makes for interesting watching.
Yeah. So there's at least two ways you can get a hold of him there and ask him private questions if you so want to. And and then you can kind of begin this conversation and start your adventure of a lifetime. My son took the adventure last summer with a harvester here in Kansas and had a bang-up time. He didn't go back, although I think he's kind of missing it now that he can smell wheat and see combines moving. But he had a really good time. And Sam says, bad driving records like reckless driving, tickets, reportable accidents are big red flags for truck drivers. Very well. Excellent advice.
It's very true. And also in the UK, when the guys go to the embassy, they need to declare any... I mean, we try and wheedle out guys who've got a bit of a police record, but there are some things they'll let go. But the thing you need to do is, when you go to the embassy, is let them know about that. Don't try and hide it. I've had a couple where they've gone and been refused visas in certain circumstances with police offences. But as long as you tell them all the truth at the embassy and don't hide anything, a lot of the time they'll let things through. I mean, I've had a couple of them. I'm not going to go into what they are, but where they've been refused for a year and they're not allowed, they can't come back for a year, and they had to stay home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a good time. He's heading out home here. He's got one more guy to visit, and then all 19 guys will have been seen and talked to, along with their crew bosses and all that. So, and then I got to go down to Alva, Oklahoma, and we traipsed all over south central Kansas, north central Oklahoma on Friday and Saturday. Total blast, total awesome. That was freaking cool. A lot of good fun. If you have any questions, you now know how to get a hold of him. Make sure that you watch this, share it with guys so they can go have their adventure. And with that, I think we'll let you go. Oh. Conrad says he's needing a harvest fix. Well, make sure you watch harvestsupportuk.usa or usa.uk webpage and Facebook page so you can get those harvest updates. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, share, and we will see you next time. Thanks again, Paul.
Oh, you're welcome. Good night.